Hi, gang. Parker J is here. Thanks for joining me for this edition of the Right Stuff Video Podcast. We're going to be talking to J.L. Pattison. He is the author of the book, The Island, which is hot, fresh off the press. And I hope you go ahead and get a copy of this book today. Not tomorrow, not a day from now, but today. You want to get it today. And let me tell you the reason why I want to get it today. It's an action-packed military thriller that you are going to absolutely enjoy. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I got the ARC, so I was really excited about this. And JL gave this to me for my birthday, so it was like a birthday gift to myself. And I love birthday gifts of the written word. I really do, and I was very excited to get it. I read it very quickly, reads very quickly, and it's just a lot of truths that's packed into this that really makes you think and open up your mind. So I highly recommend The Island by J.L. Pattison, and that's going to be available in the link below the show description for this YouTube video. Make sure you click subscribe as well and like us and follow us on Facebook at Right Stuff Radio, our Facebook page. Love to get more likes there and love to have your support. I'm Parker J, and I showcase Christian authors worldwide. And without further ado, let's introduce my guest co-host and contributor today, J.L. Pattison. J.L., how you doing today?
Great. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for being with me for this edition of the video podcast. We're doing something new here. I'm really glad that you took a step out on faith to help me with this because you never know how it's going to go. So I'm really excited to have you with us today. And what I want to do is kind of jump straight into our interview. And I want people to know a little bit more about who you are because I can always read your bio, but that doesn't really give us a chance of who you are. So go ahead, tell us who you are in your own words.
I am J.L. Pattison. I'm a fairly new author. First published work came out in 2015, The Visitor. 2016 followed with The Alibi Interrupted, short story. Both of those were short fiction. And then this year I just came out with my third story, which was The Island, which just released in ebook in May and then paperback in June.
And just to let everyone know, this is what The Island looks like in paperback. It's absolutely lovely. I love the way this soldier is coming out of the water and he's coming out and this is mist and all that kind of nice, good, creepy thriller things that we like in our military fiction. This is definitely it. And so this is The Island. Again, the link to the book will be available in the show description. Make sure you click on that link and get your copy today. Now, one thing, JL, that people always talk about is their path to writing. So go ahead and tell us how long you've been a writer. You say you're a new writer, but what does that journey to writing look like? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, like most writers, they probably can take you back to wanting to write since they can, as far back as they can remember. I've always enjoyed writing, even when I was really not good at it at all. And so as time went on and you get older and you develop and you learn and you hone your writing skills, then there comes a point when it's time to start writing and putting it out there. And so that, like I said, for me, that didn't happen until 2015 when I finally stopped saying I want to be a writer and just decided I'm going to be a writer.
I think what you said is so important because we do want to stop saying I want to be a writer and we need to say I'm going to be a writer. You have to put the dream into action. And that's highly important, especially for those who are viewing this video. You may have the same dream to be a writer. And what JL said, I think is perfectly, that's great advice for you. I remember for myself, and I mentioned this before on my show, that it took me 10 years for my first book to come out. 10 years for my book to come out. It doesn't matter how long it takes, as long as you actually get it done. Wouldn't you say, JL? As long as you get it done, you'll have that book out there. And so, you know, you tend to write whatever kind of idea pops at you, you know. So in this particular book, this is military fiction. So tell us a little bit about what drew you to this idea about military fiction.
Well, the genre of military fiction really isn't something I write to. Just as I've talked to you in the past, I've explained that I write under the umbrella of speculative fiction. And whatever story is that I want to tell, if that fits into fantasy, if that fits into sci-fi, if that happens to be a story that fits into military fiction, if it fits into romance, which I'm not anticipating writing anytime soon, but if the story I want to tell, if it actually needs a romance genre to tell that story, then that's what I'll write in. So in this particular case, it's quasi-military, but I may never write a military-style story ever again, or I might write two more. I don't know. It all depends on the story, where it leads me.
What I like is that you're not trying to pigeonhole yourself into a particular genre per se. It's a category, speculative fiction is a category, but you're not trying to pigeonhole yourself into one type of that subcategory. Like most people who know me, I write romance, and that's what I do. But my romance tends to be different. I write edgier romance, sweet romance. Now I'm into historical romances. And so I like the fact that you're leaving yourself open to let your writing career grow. And I really appreciate that. And that's another nugget for our viewers out there. If you want to write, you're not sure what to write, don't limit yourself. Well, I just want to write just romance, or I just want to write just fantasy, or just this. Let your, I would say, writing muscles expand a little bit. Wouldn't you say, JL? Just let those writing muscles expand, because you don't know what will happen to you. Because like JL said, the idea propagates its own book. Like the idea is going to come about, and so you were writing this idea, you got the idea for the island. And so tell us how you began to, because I know you're a pantser, so tell us how Parker, who's the main character of our story, and not just the host, but the main character of our story, tell us how that all came about, because I know you're a pantser, and as you pants, this character came about. So tell us a little bit about him and about how he views the world right now.
Well, everything I write develops as I write it. I don't outline anything. I find that outlining actually stifles my creativity, because now my ideas are boxed in.
Right.
And just letting it know, I follow the story where the story leads me to. I also follow the characters where the characters lead to. When I begin, I don't know what my character arc's going to be. I don't know. I don't even make those bios that a lot of authors are told to do, where you take a 10-page list of everything from your character's favorite food to their fears and all that stuff. I just let it develop as I write the story. And then, of course, when I need to, I go back and fix things, add things, take things out to develop that character.
Right.
So Parker and all the characters in the story, they come to me, and I develop them as I go. I don't set out knowing exactly what's going to happen throughout the whole story.
And that's what I can appreciate about the pantsing method that a lot of people don't appreciate, especially our plotters. Our plotters have so many issues with us pantsing. They really do. They said, how can you write and you don't know what's going to happen next? And we both kind of say, what'd you say?
There's freedom in
yes.
writing by your pants.
Oh, yes. Seat in your pants, like we're going for the ride. You know what I mean? And I think about the roller coaster where you kind of know you're going up, but it's just, you're going to hit that big dip, and then you're going to fall and your stomach flops, and some people's teeth fall out and hair fall out and all that kind of stuff, but you're going along for the ride. And that's what's really nice about the island, because the island reads very quickly, very action-packed, boom, boom, boom. It's kind of like one of those type of novels that you kind of read it very quickly without realizing that you read it very quickly, because that's how it does, because he's writing by that. But that doesn't mean just because he wrote by the seat of his pants that you don't have a quality story. And tell us a little bit about why you're so dedicated to making sure that you put out the best work possible for your book, and why that's important for new authors to be conscientious of. Well,
the reason is that indie authors and publishers, there's a very negative stigma that's attached to that. And I can tell you from independent books from independent authors that I've read, sometimes there's a real justification for that stigma, and a lot of bad writing, poor grammar, things that an editor would have fixed that just somehow never did and went right to press. And so, as someone who's a published author myself, I want to raise that bar. I want to put out the best possible product that I can. And so that the reader isn't getting this and going, wow, this is just another poorly written, poorly executed indie published book. And so to avoid that, and I want, as almost like as trying to raise the bar for everyone else, to commit to that. Don't put your story out prematurely. Make sure you actually take the time. If it takes another 6 months, make sure you can get an editor and a copy editor and make sure everything's squared away and correct. Do that before you put it out, because when you put out a subpar product, it hurts the rest of everyone in the market, because they get that stigma. And I'll be honest with you, there was not too long ago, I made a decision myself that I'm not going to read any more independent authors, because there's so much just bad writing. And I know there's some great ones out there. It's just trying to find them. Obviously, you can have an ocean of available titles. and then the ones you keep picking up seem to be ones that probably should have never made it to print. You stop wanting to take those risks on the books that are out there that are really good. You miss out on. So I just want to encourage other authors to make sure you take that time to invest the time that it takes to make sure your product is good as well. So we can all together raise that bar of the standard for independent authors.
That's important too. When you were using that visual, with this vast ocean, I kept seeing this poor fisherman in the middle of the ocean just throwing back bad fish that he doesn't want anymore. Like, don't want that. But then for some of us, we already paid the money. And that's what kind of gets you upset. Look, that you pay money, whether it's 99 cents or $9.99, and you pay that money, you really want the biggest bang for your buck, even if it is 99 cents. I don't care if it's 99 cents. You want a quality read. And you can't say, well, it's just 99 cents, just take it. No. I spent $1 that I could have spent getting a cup of coffee that I spent on your book. And you have to respect that for some people. So those are some things you want to tell our viewers out there who are new authors. What are you going to say, JL?
I was going to say that's a double-edged sword of the publishing market, because years ago, in order to be published, you had to go through the gatekeeper. And there's probably a lot of good authors out there in the past that have lived and died, never had a book published because it never made it past gatekeeper. And with the self-publishing, it opened up those doors for everybody to publish their own stuff, which now saturates the market with so many books that you're finding it difficult to get your product out there. Before you had trouble getting it out because you had to go past the gatekeeper. Now there are no gatekeepers, but you now get lost in that ocean of other titles. Somehow you got to figure a way to stand out and get your name out and get people to start reading. So I'm not sure. You have more of a chance with self-publishing, but the amount of books out there really make it hard to get found.
And that's an important thing to consider. So for those of you who are thinking about this path, make sure that you bring out that good quality. Make sure that you do your due diligence. And whatever you do, and this is me, I do not care if you're an editor, get someone else to edit your stuff. I'm sorry. I don't care if you edit for a living. When it comes to your own stuff, get someone else to edit it, because you can't see your own mistakes. And there are some people say, oh no, I'm really good at it. No, you're not. You're not as good as you think. Trust me on this. And don't even get like your mom or your sister or your brother, because they love you. So, I mean, you want people who love you, you want readers who love you, but you do want someone who's going to be honest with you about your craft, And so one thing that I love about doing these shows here is that there's so many books that have a wonderful Christian message in it. And that's why I love doing this show. I've been doing it now for 5 years. For those of you who are new to Parker J. Cole, I've been doing this show for 5 years via Blog Talk. Now we're branching out to video cast. And I love the message that's in here, the Christian message that's in here. Do you think someone, though, who may be watching may say, okay, I can't read this. Obviously, it's a Christian book. I will be turned off by it. It just goes about Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. What would you say to that?
What would I say if someone said that? Well,
or rather, I should say, can they read this book without having faith, without being a believer?
Oh, absolutely. I write all my stories that anybody can read it.
Right.
I feel too many books and/or movies in the Christian market are geared towards just Christians. That only people enjoy the book or movie. Only Christians will like it, and that actually alienates a large portion of individuals that could read your book and enjoy it very much. But my stories aren't really geared that way. I don't write a story. A lot of stories start out, or a lot of books or movies, that Christian films and books, they start out with the purpose of, we're going to tell this message, but we're going to build a story around it to tell the message. Where that's not my approach. My approach is, I have a great story I want to tell. If a message can fit in this story, then by all means, I will put it in there. But I won't force a message, because I understand also that there's this checklist that you have to check off as a Christian author. And if you don't have a gospel message in your book, it's not a Christian book. And my first short story came out, The Visitor, and I actually got a few comments that, there's no gospel message in here. And my answer to that was, it was a 7,000 word short fiction piece. To try to force something in there, it wouldn't have flown. So the quality of the product would have diminished just to be able to check a box. And I'm not going to do that. I mean,
right.
I'll give you an example. There's a quote attributed to Martin Luther, and I'm not sure if he said it or someone else, but it was something to the effect of, and I'm going to shred it in my paraphrase here, is that the Christian shoemaker does his job by making a quality shoe, not by smacking crosses all over the shoe. So it's the same thing. You can read the story and get a great story, even though there's not a Romans Road point in the story. And that also, on the flip side, makes it my story is family friendly as well, because there is no profanity, there is no sexual content, and any violence that is in there is very minimal, and it's integral to the storytelling. As you can tell, if you remember reading the ending in The Island, there's a certain scene in there where there's a violent event that takes place, but it's almost less is more in that aspect. And we've gotten away from that in all markets. There's that moment where there's something violent happens and we want to focus on the violence itself, when in reality, you could have the camera pan to another room and just hear a gunshot go off. You know exactly what happened. You don't have to show all the gory details. So regardless of whether there's the gospel message in one of my stories or not, they're still acceptable for families.
I like that you mentioned that, because that is a problem that some Christian authors have, is how much is too much. And there are so many different views about it. I have my own view and others have theirs. They have very definitive ideas what they think Christian fiction is. And this is probably a topic in Christian fiction that will go on to the end of time because so many people have so many views about it. I mean, to the end of time. And so one thing you mentioned, you thought less is more. Recently, I was watching a clip. I don't like watching those movies because I have to go to bed at night, but I was watching a clip of, I think Annabelle Creation, which is like a doll movie. I don't like doll movies. They scare me to death. I don't like that. I don't have dolls. I never had a teddy bear, we don't do that. So anyway, and in it, there's a scene where in the clip I saw, the girl goes into the darkness. All you see is her eyes glowing. And then all of a sudden she starts to rise up and you never see it happen. You just see her eyes go from up here to up here. And it's the scariest thing you've ever seen because less is more. And I was like, okay, turn this off, because I just got creeped out by this, And I like monster movies, like Alien, Predator, stuff like that. I like that type of thing. But I don't like ghost stories. They freak me out. And so I like that you mentioned that, because that's a technique that authors can really embody, is using that less is more technique and making sure that you don't always have to have, the guts hanging out, blood gushing down the throat, bullet shot to the head. I mean, really less is more. And what I want to do, because I want to make sure we dig to the island here, I want to read a quick excerpt from here. And the excerpt I'm going to read is a conversation between Parker and Lafayette. There's a conversation going on here, and hopefully you can understand some of what I'm saying here. Sherard, have you wondered why I'm the only person who's even attempted to approach you so far? Is it because no one knows what to make of you or the real reason you're here? What other people think of me is none of my business. I only care about one thing, and that's getting off this island and back to my family. Look at you. All of these people are your family now. They're all you have. I don't plan on being here long enough to acquaint myself with anyone. And how do you suppose you're going to escape this island? I won't need to escape. I just have to wait for the cavalry. And who is the cavalry? The United States. They will come rescue me and bring me home and bring home my fallen partners. Lafayette eyed Parker for a moment before answering. I don't think anyone will be coming for you. You seriously underestimate the American military. Oh, no, I don't, Lafayette said with a smirk. Who do you think is running this island? Parker, now leaning forward, paused for a moment to digest Lafayette's response. That's the second time I've heard that lie. Second time? Yeah, the guy who interrogated me the night I was captured told me he was the United States military. It's not a lie. Everything you see here is our government at work, and it's all maintained by the military. I don't subscribe to conspiracy theories. My government isn't involved in things like this. You have no idea what your country, our country, is capable of. And that's an excerpt from The Island, which is available for sale on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. I just want to give you a piece of that because there's a very interesting conversation going on between Lafayette and Parker, who's our main character of the story. And what happened here is that Parker is on a mission and he gets into this island. And then from there, things really start to go trippy because it doesn't go according to plan. And I don't want to get too much away because if I get too much away, you may go, well, I know what this book's about. And let me tell you, you don't know what this book is about. You don't know. And I just read a couple pieces of this because a lot of times there are some people who have blind patriotism to their country. And there's nothing wrong with patriotism at all. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm proud to be an American, despite the scattered and speckled and spotted and bloody history of our country, proud to be an American. But there are some people who have real issues with our country. And I think what JL did here is kind of put some of that into play here. And I wanted to kind of get behind the scenes of that, because there are some thoughts and processes that you are expressing through the art of fiction about this blind loyalty to anybody, not just our country, but to anybody. This is blind loyalty to them. So what are some things that if a reader's reading this, they're going to hear some of these things in this book. So what do you want the reader to come away with as they read The Island?
Well, I want the reader to come away with thinking about what they just read, enjoying the story that they just read, enjoying the ending that they maybe didn't expect, and thinking about a lot of the things that were mentioned throughout the story. A lot of I think, in fact, most of everything that's in there, with very few exceptions, are actually true historic events that the average American has no clue about. And so I use those events in here to build on the conspiracy that's actually taking place on the island. And so I would like the reader to actually maybe even start, pique their curiosity, maybe look into some of these things and see, what is this crazy talk about this, and do the research for themselves, and they'd be very surprised what they'd find out.
One thing is that people are very skeptical of conspiracy theorists. Would you consider yourself a conspiracy theorist?
Well, the coin was phrased actually as an attack on people that were questioning the Kennedy assassination,
Right.
President Kennedy. It came from, I believe it was Ed J. Edgar Hoover in a memo in the FBI. And they were trying to combat all these questions that were coming out because everybody was looking at the situation, especially those in Dealey Plaza, and saying, no, this isn't what happened. This isn't what I saw. And then there were some, independent investigators that were early out, right out the chute, looking into that assassination, including folks like Mark Lane. And they were also being attacked. And so there had to come a way in order to combat the investigations that were pointing fingers at the fact that there's a lot of issues with the official story of what took place. And so at that point, the FBI put out that memo, and what they were doing was pretty much trying to paint these people as crazy or kooks or whatever you want to frame it.
Right.
So that's where that pejorative conspiracy theory term came from.
Yeah.
As I look at it as, I let the facts lead me where the facts lead me, and I don't care if CNN tells me A, B, and C happened. If the facts say X, Y, Z, then I'm going to go with X, Y, Z. And unfortunately, most people don't do that. Most people just, whatever the television tells them. And I'll give you a great example. Now the name slips from me, but very famous newscaster just recently retired, and now the name totally escapes me. And he saw the Abraham Zapruder film and went on TV and said that Kennedy's head could be seen moving violently forward. Unfortunately, in the late 1970s, I believe it was 1978, and Robert Groden brought it on to the Geraldo Rivera show and showed for the first time on national television the Zapruder film. And everybody in the audience on national TV saw the head of the president violently go back into the left. So the newscaster, which I cannot believe I can't remember his name. I mean, he's a popular guy. He got in trouble too back in the Bush era for lying about something to do with George Bush II's military record or something like that. But and I know people are watching this and are yelling at the screen, going, "It's this guy!" I can't think of it right now. But anyway, he was just a small-time Dallas reporter, and then all of a sudden now he's the national guy. He had a stellar, long career, and it was all based on a lie. He flat out lied to the American people. So again, we have issues in which the media doesn't tell the truth. And I mean, I could go on for hours providing just fact after fact how the media is used to form public opinion. And so again, it comes back to doing your own independent investigation. There's wonderful people. There's tons of people out there that have done tons of investigations.
And that's
events. And then you just have to research it for yourself.
And that's why I liked about the island. That's why I use the term conspiracy theorist, because it's kind of an umbrella term nowadays. It's an umbrella term to say, oh, you're just conspiracy theory or whatever. And I always say is truth there. I believe there's truth there. Maybe it's not, the aliens coming down and taking us up and all that, but there is truth that we do have to be aware of. And I think that's what your book kind of, for me, that's what it did for me. It's like, be aware of what's going on. Don't just accept things at face value. And then sometimes when you open up and you see this, and then I think the problem why some people are kind of hesitant to do that, because then they have to make a decision about the information that they have. I remember one gentleman told me, I want the truth, whether or not the truth makes me uncomfortable. He said, I want the truth. I want to know the truth, even if it makes me uncomfortable. And some people don't want to be uncomfortable. And in the island, Parker begins to become very uncomfortable as he begins to uncover truth in this book. And then there's the message of faith that's in here is also stellar. The message of faith in here is also stellar through his struggles and through his opportunity to escape this island. And so lots of good things are going on in this book. And that's why I highly encourage you to get a copy of The Island today. It's on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. The link will be in the show description box below you. Make sure you go ahead and click on that link. Another thing I want to talk to you about briefly, one thing I talk to you about is that some of the characters in here, I always think that some of our characters reflect us in some small way. And I know some of the characters reflect some of your viewpoints about other things. What are some other things that some of these characters may reflect about you, or maybe about somebody you know? You may have put like an element of someone you know in the book, you know what I mean? Like, oh, so-and-so does this, it's going in the book, you know what I mean? So tell us which of these characters may reflect a part of you or someone you know. Just, kind of give some inside scoop on the characters.
I don't really think if I outlined, I would think that I would probably put that thought into characters, but because I just write and let the characters take me on the journey as I write, they develop themselves. And so subconsciously, could there be some stuff in there that's me? Possibly.
Yeah.
But I just let the characters, they're going to do a lot of things in there I would never do. So it's just, I let the characters lead the story.
Awesome. I like that, because I know for myself, there is a part of me in every book. I already know my insecurities I may have, some food I may like, just there are parts of me in a book. I know that. And I saw some authors do that. You can't help it, because this is pouring out of you. It pours out of your mind and your talent and everything, And so the other thing I want
just to interrupt real quick. Just did it real quick. The reporter I was trying to remember is Dan Rather. And you can look it up. There's videos on YouTube of him flat out lying to the American public, saying Kennedy's head went violently forward and drops his head. And then, 1978, the world sees the truth. So now that I looked it up, I can feel better about it.
He said, I know his name. He's
bothering me.
I know everyone's like,
until I got that answered.
I bet you our viewers are like, it's Dan Rather, dummy. You're like, I'm sorry. And you know what it was, don't you? You're just trying to think of it too hard because you know it. I hate the tip of the tongue syndrome. I hate that syndrome because you know it, like from the back of your hand, and it just won't come out, So
now that I got the way, we can continue with the interview.
I know, right? We're done. Well, my next thing is what are some of your next projects that you have planned now? Because you already finished your third work. What's your next project you have planned?
Well, that's a good question. I actually have an author confession, and I know some of the writers out there are going to probably, but I haven't actually written in 2018. I know, you're told to write every day. You write every day as an author. You have to write every day or you're a bad author. I know that. I've just been so busy with the getting The Island finalized, getting it edited, getting it ready for print, getting it distributed, working on my website, my brand new website that just came out, getting all of that stuff plus summer. Summer is a lot busier than winter, so I actually haven't been able to sit down and work on the writing, which is the best part of being a writer. and unfortunately, that's about 1% of what you do, because 99% of it's everything else, and the marketing and the begging people to look at your book and, you know, begging for reviews, things like that. So I actually haven't written. However, with that said, my next project, I have some of the stories. I have an anthology coming out. And I already have some of those stories written, and it's going to, I'm assuming approximately maybe 10 short fiction pieces. And it's all going to be in the same vein as like Twilight Zone episodes, in the sense where they're going to have a good twist ending. And that I expect out sometime in 2019. And I'll be jumping right into that here within the next couple months. So I look forward to that.
Awesome. I like to hear that. You know what? As long as you get that next book out, that's all that matters, JL. That's all that matters. Get that next book out. I totally feel you there. You know, we are getting close to the end of our discussion today. Just had a great time talking with you. But I want people to have an opportunity to connect with you online. So go ahead and tell us your social media outlets.
Well, you can connect with me at jlpattison.com. And that's Pattison. It's variation on the name Pattison. So if you go to jlpattison.com, you're not going to find me. But it's Pattison, jlpattison.com.
Or James Patterson, right? Or James, don't go to James Patterson either. No.
With that Pattison guy, that's an actor. I get confused with that too on Google.
And so, you know, this show is always about encouraging authors to pick up the pen and write, you know, and we really want to do that, especially when they have the gift that God gave them. We want them to use it in whatever capacity that is. So in a few moments we have left, go ahead and share a word of encouragement to those authors out there.
Well, I can give you a great piece of advice that actually helped me. What I would struggle with for a long time was I would write my first paragraph and then go back and edit it over and over till I get it just right. And that would take weeks. And then before you know it, a month later, you still only have one paragraph. Well, I heard this piece of advice, or I read this piece of advice somewhere, I'm not really sure where, and it just said, just write. From beginning to end, just write. Don't worry about grammar, editing, all that stuff, because you go back then and fix it. And I tried that. It was the greatest piece of advice I ever got. And so I just encourage you, if you're in that same spot where you wrote your first chapter, but you won't move on because you got to keep making sure that first chapter is right, just move on to chapter 2, because you'll never write chapter 2 or 3 or 4 if you're still stuck in chapter 1, making additions that you might end up having to change later when you get to chapter 14. So that's my greatest piece of advice that I ever got that helped spark me to go ahead and start writing. And so I like to pass that on to anyone I can. They're struggling in that same area.
JL, thank you so much for being with us on the show today. I really appreciate just digging behind the scenes of The Island. Really appreciate you taking time out to let our viewers know about your new book. Again, it's called JL Pattison, The Island. I have the paperback, but you can also get an ebook. It's available on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. Make sure you go ahead and get a copy of that today, not tomorrow, not the day after that. Get it today, and make sure you let him know what you thought about it. And me and him will both tell you, reviews help us know that we did what we said we were going to do. And if we didn't, we really need to know that too, so we can get better at this thing called writing. So make sure you buy a copy today, and then leave a review as well. And then follow him on his social media. Go to his website, jlpattison.com. That's Pattison.com. Make sure you follow him there, and probably all his social media hookups and all that stuff is there too. JL, once again, thank you so much for being with us on the show today. And thank you to our viewers for watching, and stay tuned for another episode of The Right Stuff. Make sure you click subscribe and like our Facebook page, Right Stuff Radio. Have a good day. Bye.